Hello to you, Kira.
Hello, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Kira. So we heard there from the Prime Minister at this conference, and as we say, the British government's underwriting £3 billion worth of loans. There's also, I see, 26.3 million of underwriting being made available for reconstruction of damaged bridges. It's still, though, just a tiny fraction, Kira, of what's going to be needed.
Well, that is true. And though we are extremely grateful for the support that we are receiving, and I think that this conference was a success, having 61 countries sending their representatives, assuring that Ukraine will not be alone in the rebuild. I still would want to hear from Prime Minister Sunak something regarding Russian assets. He said that he's committed to get those money to Ukraine, but as of right now, we have not seen a progress with that bill that is in the British Parliament right now.
Yes.
So when we're talking about all those money that we will receive from the countries that support us, we always remember that they are going out of the pockets of the taxpayers, of people who are us with their minds, and not from the money that should be used for that, from Russian money that is just laying in the bank somewhere right now instead of being actually used.
Yes, I mean, just on that Russian money, I've seen an estimate that there are maybe $300 billion worth of seized and frozen Russian assets. And there are those in Washington, D.C., aren't there, in the U.S. Congress, who want to see those Russian assets used in support of Ukraine. But there are some doubts in Europe. It's very unclear at this stage where this is going to go.
Well, look, as of right now, we know that Canada have passed legislation, and they are on the way of having $26 million of oligarch Abramovich to be seized and sent to Ukraine. The United States are on the way of using $5 million of oligarchs Malofeyev. And we recently heard that Kaja Kallas and Estonian parliaments are getting ready to pass the bill that would allow them to do the same with Russian assets in Estonia.
Yeah.
Similar bill is there in the British Parliament. And again, like, I would really love to hear that there is a commitment to pass it through and start using Russian money instead of British money for that.
Yes. I mean, look, there seems to be a will, certainly when you listen to the British Prime Minister and American politicians and European politicians, to support what needs to be done in Ukraine. The World Bank, the UN and the European Union, they talk about a bill at the moment, which is at something like £411 billion, and that's going to increase as the war goes on. Do you think there's going to be the kind of support you need when the time comes?
Well, we already have the support that we need, and the time is right now. I think the issue is that we do not have the proper estimate of how much money we would need, and that every single day these estimates change. Like if we talked 2 weeks ago, before Russia blew up the Kakhovska Dam, there would be another number. Right now, the number definitely increased, and we have like huge territories that not only need rebuilding, but that we used to use for the agricultural purposes, and we would not be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, the moral case, Kira.
The war zone, it's very hard to give this estimate.
Indeed. I mean, it will have to play out, and there are uncertainties to be confronted. I mean, the moral case for helping Ukraine is overwhelming, and there's a strategic case, obviously, for supporting freedom in Ukraine. What about the business case? You're asking people to take a risk with an enormous amount of money in a country which could face uncertainty and a continuing threat from Russia. How would you answer those doubts, Kira?
I was a businesswoman myself before becoming a politician, and I know when there is a high risk, there is always a high ability to get a profit. And this is why we are saying, yes, the risks are high. But we are a country on the way to European Union. We are the country that getting support of the whole world. We are the countries that going to win the war. And you can be the first one in this huge market, and you can actually get in a very early stage. So from the business standpoint, it's very rational. We just need from our side as Ukrainian parliamentarians, make sure that we remove all the roadblocks that can exist there. And this is one of the goals of the conference.
Yes.
Learn what are the roadblocks.
And worth pointing out that, quite apart from the the strategic case, which is strong, and the moral case, which, as I say, is overwhelming. There's also the fact that Ukraine has an awful lot of value to offer its friends in the West, if that's the way, that's the sort of response that you get. Ukraine has an enormous amount of wealth in natural resources, something like 21 of the 30 raw material commodities which are judged as needed by the UK. They're right there in Ukraine. You do have a strong case to make.
Aside of those materials, we also used to be one of the largest agricultural countries and breadbasket for the whole Europe. And our IT sector was thriving and was the only sector that was showing the growth during the last year, so during the full-scale war. So we are not the countries that is constantly asking for support. We are a country that is saying, please help us now, because we are going to be a next big thing in the future. We are going to work as hard as you have seen us working and fighting, because we know that this is our chance and we are going to take that. It is not that I'm telling you something about the future. I'm telling you, showing the proofs from the past, from the last year, from the last 5 years, of how hard we are working and how much we are striving to make sure that we make this push. And can you imagine what would happen when we will get into European Union and we'll start working by the mutual rules? We'll rebuild our infrastructure and make sure that we are operating in the mutual market. I think it will be a great renew for the whole European unity and for Europe as well.